Section 41 of the Endeavour Journal of Sir Joseph Banks. Journal from 25 August 1768 to 12 July 1771 by Joseph Banks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Gail Timmerman Vaughan. Section 41. July 1770, Part 2. 1770, July 13. 2 Indians came in their canoe to the ship, stayed by her a very short time, and then went alongshore striking fish. Our boat returned from the reef with 1 turtle and 1 large stingray. 1770, July 14. Our second lieutenant, who was a shooting today, had the good fortune to kill the animal that had so long been the subject of our speculations. To compare it to any European animal would be impossible, as it has not the least resemblance of any one I have seen. Its forelegs are extremely short, and of no use to it in walking. Its hind, again, as disproportionately long. With these it hops 7 or 8 feet at each hop, in the same manner as the jerboa, to which animal indeed it bears much resemblance except in size, this being in weight 38 pounds, and the jerboa no larger than a common rat. 1770, July 15. The beast, which was killed yesterday, was today dressed for our dinners, and proved excellent meat. In the evening the boat returned from the reef bringing 4 turtles, so we may now be able to swim in plenty. Our turtles are certainly far preferable to any I have eat in England, which must proceed from their being eat fresh from the sea, before they have either wasted away their fat, or by unnatural food which is given them in the tubs where they are kept, given themselves a fat of not so delicious a flavour as it is in their wild state. Most of those we have caught have been green turtle, from 200 to 300 pound weight. These, when killed, were always found to be full of turtle grass, a kind of conferva, I believe. 2 only were loggerheads, which were but indifferent meat. In their stomachs were nothing but shells. 1770, July 16. As the ship was now nearly ready for her departure, Dr. Solander and myself employed ourselves in winding up our botanical bottoms, examining what we wanted, and making up our complement of specimens of as many species as possible. The boat brought 3 turtle again today, one of which was a male, which was easily to be distinguished from the female by the vast size of his tail, which was 4 times longer and thicker than hers. In every other respect they were exactly alike. One of our people on board the ship, who has been a turtler in the West Indies, told me that they never sent male turtle home to England from thence, because they wasted in keeping much more than the females, which we found to be true. 1770, July 17. Tupaya, who was over the water by himself, saw 3 Indians, who gave him a kind of longish roots, about as thick as a man's fingers, and of a very good taste. On his return the captain, Dr. Solander, and myself went over in hopes to see them and renew our connections. We met with 4 in a canoe, who soon after came ashore, and came to us without any signs of fear. After receiving the beads, etc., that we had given them, they went away. We attempted to follow them, hoping that they would lead us to their fellows, where we might have an opportunity of seeing their women. They, however, by signs, made us understand that they did not desire our company. 1770, July 18. Indians were over with us today, and seemed to have lost all fear of us, and became quite familiar. One of them, at our desire, threw his lance, which was about 8 feet in length. It flew with a degree of swiftness and steadiness that really surprised me, never being above 4 feet from the ground, and stuck deep in at the distance of 50 paces. After this they ventured on board the ship, and soon became our very good friends, so the captain and me left them to the care of those who stayed on board, and went to a high hill about 6 miles from the ship. Here we overlooked a great deal of sea to leeward, which afforded a melancholy prospect of the difficulties we were to encounter when we came out of our present harbour. In whichever direction we turned our eyes, shoals innumerable were to be seen, and no such thing as any passage to sea but through the winding channels between them, dangerous to the last degree. 1770, July 19. 10 Indians visited us today, and brought with them a larger quantity of lances than they had ever done before. These they laid up in a tree, leaving a man and a boy to take care of them, and came on board the ship. They soon let us know their errand, which was by some means or other to get one of our turtle, of which we had 8 or 9 laying upon the decks. They first by signs asked for one, and on being refused showed great marks of resentment. One who had asked me, on my refusal, stamping his foot, pushed me from him with a countenance full of disdain, and applied to someone else. As, however, they met with no encouragement in this, they laid hold of a turtle, and hauled him forwards toward the side of the ship, where their canoe lay. It, however, was soon taken from them and replaced. They nevertheless repeated the experiment 2 or 3 times, and after meeting with so many repulses, all in an instant leapt into their canoe and went ashore, where I had got before them, just ready to set out plant gathering. They seized their arms in an instant, and taking fire from under a pitch kettle, which was boiling, they began to set fire to the grass to windward of the few things we had left ashore, with surprising dexterity and quickness. The grass, which was 4 or 5 feet high, and as dry as stubble, burnt with vast fury. A tent of mine, which had been put up for Tupaya when he was sick, was the only thing of any consequence in the way of it, so I leapt into a boat to fetch some people from the ship, in order to save it, and quickly returning, hauled it down to the beach, just time enough. The captain, in the meantime, followed the Indians to prevent their burning our linen, and the seine, which lay on the grass just where they were gone. He had no musket with him, so soon returned to fetch one, for no threats or signs would make them desist. Mine was ashore and another loaded with shot, so we ran as fast as possible towards them, and came just time enough to save the seine by firing at an Indian who had already fired the grass in 2 places just to windward of it. On the shot striking him, though he was full 40 yards from the captain who fired, he dropped his fire and ran nimbly to his comrades, who all ran off pretty fast. The captain then loaded his musket with a ball and fired it into the mangroves abreast of where they ran, to show them that they were not yet out of our reach. They ran on, quickening their pace on hearing the ball, and we soon lost sight of them. We then returned to the seine, where the people who were ashore had got the fire under. We now thought we were freed from these troublesome people, but we soon heard their voices returning, on which, anxious for some people who were washing that way, we ran towards them. On seeing us come up with our muskets, they again retired leisurely, after an old man had ventured quite to us, and said something which we could not understand. We followed for near a mile, then meeting with some rocks from whence we might observe their motions, we sat down, and they did so too about 100 yards from us. The little old man now came forward to us, carrying in his hands a lance without a point. He halted several times, and as he stood employed himself in collecting the moisture from under his armpit with his finger, which he every time drew through his mouth. We beckoned to him to come. He then spoke to the others, who all laid their lances against a tree, and leaving them came forwards, likewise, and soon came quite to us. They had with them, it seems, 3 strangers, who wanted to see the ship, but the man who was shot at and the boy were gone, so our troop now consisted of 11. The strangers were presented to us by name, and we gave them such trinkets as we had about us. Then we all proceeded toward the ship, they making signs, as they came along, that they would not set fire to the grass again, and we distributing musket balls among them, and by our signs explaining their effect. When they came abreast of the ship, they sat down, but could not be prevailed upon to come on board. So after a little time we left them to their contemplations. They stayed about 2 hours, and then departed. We had great reason to thank our good fortune that this accident happened so late in our stay. Not a week before this, our powder, which was put ashore when first we came in, had been taken on board, and that very morning only the store tent and that in which the sick had lived were got on board. I had little idea of the fury with which the grass burnt in this hot climate, nor of the difficulty of extinguishing it when once lighted. This accident will, however, be a sufficient warning for us if ever we should again pitch tents in such a climate, to burn everything round us before we begin. 1770, July 20. Yesterday evening the ship was hauled off from the shore ready for her departure. In the night, by some unlucky accident, she tailed to shore during the ebb, and as the tide settled brought such a strain upon her rudder as alarmed us all greatly. The tiller, which was in the most danger, beat hard under some strong sheep pens, which had been built in a platform over it. As the tide settled still more, it came to the point where either the tiller or the platform would break, for one must, which the platform fortunately did, and made us at once easy. No Indians came near us, but all the hills about us for many miles were on fire, and at night made the most beautiful appearance imaginable. The pinnace returned, which had been sent to leeward, in search of a passage. The officer in her had met with nothing but shoals, and not the least likelihood of a passage that way. No very comfortable situation. Our ship, it was true, was now repaired. Leaky she was from the strains she had got, but the water she made was trifling. We were ready to sail with the first fair wind, but where to go? To windward was impossible, to leeward was a labyrinth of shoals, so that how soon we might have the ship to repair again, or lose her quite, no one could tell. Encounter the difficulty, however, we must, and since our bargain was a bad one, make the best of it. At night the yawl returned with one turtle in her. It had blown so much since she had been out that she with difficulty took even that, for as all our turtle had been taken by chasing, moderate weather was absolutely necessary. 1770 July 21. No signs of the Indians today, nor indeed anything else worthy of note. 1770 July 22. The turtle which was killed this morn had an Indian turtle peg in it, which seemed to have laid there a long time. It was in the breast across the forefins, having entered at the soft part near the fins, but the wound it made in going in was entirely grown up. The peg itself was about 8 inches in length, and as thick as a man's little finger. One of our people, who had been sent out to gather Indian kale, straying from his party, met with 3 Indians, 2 men and a boy. He came upon them as they sat down amongst some long grass, on a sudden, and before he was aware of it. At first he was much afraid, and offered them his knife, the only thing he had which he thought might be acceptable to them. They took it, and after handing it from one to another, returned it to him. They kept him about half an hour, behaving most civilly to him, only satisfying their curiosity in examining his body, which done, they made him signs that he might go away, which he did, very well pleased. They had hanging on a tree by them, he said, a quarter of the wild animal and a cockatoo. But how they had been clever enough to take these animals is almost beyond my conception, as most of them are most shy, especially the cockatoos. 1770 July 23. In botanizing today on the other side of the river, we accidentally found the greatest part of the clothes which had been given to the Indians, left all in a heap together, doubtless as lumber not worth carriage. Maybe, had we looked farther, we should have found our other trinkets, for they seemed to set no value upon anything we had except our turtle, which of all things we were the least able to spare them. 1770 July 24. The blowing weather, which had hindered us from getting out several days, still lasted, not at all to our satisfaction, who had no one wish to remain longer in this place, which we had pretty well exhausted even of its natural history. The doctor and me were obliged to go very far for anything new. Today we went several miles to a high hill, where, after sweating and broiling among the woods till night, we were obliged to return almost empty. But the most vexatious accident imaginable befell us likewise. Travelling in a deep valley, the sides of which were steep, almost as a wall, but covered with trees and plenty of brushwood, we found marking nuts, Anacardium orientale, laying on the ground, and desirous as we were to find the tree on which they had grown, a thing that I believe no European botanist has seen, we were not with all our pains able to find it. So after cutting down 4 or 5 trees and spending much time, we were obliged to give over our hopes. 1770 July 25. The captain, who was up the river today, found the canoe belonging to our friends the Indians, which it seems they had left tied to some mangroves within a mile of the ship. Themselves, we could see by their fires, were 5 or 6 miles off from us, directly inland. 1770 July 26. In botanizing today, I had the good fortune to take an animal of the opossum, Didelphis tribe. It was a female, and with it I took 2 young ones. It was not unlike that remarkable one which de Buffon had described by the name of Phalanger as an American animal. It was, however, not the same, for de Buffon is certainly wrong in asserting that this tribe is peculiar to America, and in all probability, as Pallas has said in his Zoologica, the Phalanger itself is a native of the East Indies, as my animal and that agree in the extraordinary conformation of their feet, in which particular they differ from all the others. 1770 July 27. This day was dedicated to hunting the wild animal. We saw several, and had the good fortune to kill a very large one, which weighed 84 pounds. 1770 July 28. Botanizing with no kind of success. The plants were now entirely completed, and nothing new to be found, so that sailing is all we wish for, if the wind would but allow us. Dined today upon the animal, who eat but ill. He was, I suppose, too old. His fault, however, was an uncommon one, the total want of flavour, for he was certainly the most insipid meat I eat. 1770 July 29. Went out again in search of the animals. Our success today was not, however, quite so good as the last time. We saw a few and killed one, very small one, which weighed no more than 8½ pounds. My greyhound took him with ease, though the old ones were much too nimble for him. 1770 July 30. Ever since the ship was hauled off for sailing, we have had blowing weather till to-day, when it changed to little wind and rain, which gave us some hopes. In the evening, however, the wind returned to its old bias. 1770 July 31. Morning cloudy and boisterous enough, even clear, with less wind, which supplied hopes, at least for tomorrow. End of section 41. Part 2, July 1770.